Bad visions of his family. A family he himself.
Alright, so Syscom versus fan
But the
control
hands
test.
of death could not.
I'm going to take this straight to the resourceful page. And we do have the PS3 in the upright position. I'll just show you. As you can see. So it's standing up. My camera's a little high, so let me just... there you go. So that's the ideal position you want your PS3 in to make it as cool as possible. So we're giving Syscom every chance here. So this is an extremely resourceful page. It will max out CPU and GPU. Does it just as much as The Last of Us in gameplay. So this is actually as resourceful as playing The Last of Us full on, just having this title screen. I'm guessing they put a lot of graphics and CPU power to make it more immersive when you go into the game. So this is all graphics, no video loop or anything. And what I want to see, because it's going to go to 25 and maybe 28% fan speed. So it does let the CPU hit 70 degrees. So this is all very normal from system fan control. Still on 20% fan speed, which is like a light breeze going through your console. So yeah, when I did the refurbishment of this console, unfortunately I didn't catch it on camera, because there was a bit of confusion between the pausing and the starting. So when I thought I was recording, I wasn't. And when I thought I wasn't recording, I was. So that got a little bit confusing. But the paste on the GPU was wet. It wasn't on the CPU. It was wet on the GPU. So what that tells me is that this was either used for very light gaming, like games that don't resource the GPU, and that can be a lot of the downloadable content from Sony. They do not, like Daytona, if you run that downloaded from PSN store, it's like puts your system to sleep. It doesn't resource it at all. So if you're playing lots of those sort of games, then that's what's happened. The GPU just hasn't worked hard, hasn't been working at all, hasn't had to. Or it was used as a Blu-ray player. CPU will still get warm no matter what. So here it's got to 74 degrees on the CPU, and RSX is 73, and I must stress these are normal temperatures under Syscom. Fan is now gone to 25%. We've just heard it kick up slightly. So you've gone from not even knowing there was a fan going on your machine because it was so slow, to 25 and then 28% fan speed very quickly. So an overheating system, and this is not going to be one of those, it's been fully refurbished. An overheating system, the CPU will go straight up to 80, your fan would kick up to 35% fan speed very quickly, your CPU would continue to rise back up to 80, your fan speed would go up to 40, 50, 60, 70%, and then from there you get the jet plane noise, which is just like, that's an overheating system. That will lead to system failure of the GPU and the CPU at some point, or the tokens, because they'll be working hard to keep the CPU and GPU going. Here what we're seeing is 28% fan speed maintained under heavy load, so it hasn't even gone to 30% fan speed. But I'm doing this video to highlight to you the difference between having your system set at a minimum of 32% fan speed, because as you can see here, it's been on for 7 minutes and it's got up to 28. So by having your system basically on 32% fan speed from the outset, is going to prevent these temperatures. Now Sony have said, you know, CPU RSX temperatures in the 70s is fine. A lot of people say, yeah, keep it below 73, 74, you'll be fine. I've done a lot of research online about it. And this system will do that for you under heavy load. So don't forget, this is worst case scenario for your system. This is as hot as it's going to get. But it's a 15-year-old system. I'll be far more comfortable preventing these temperatures from ever getting there. And the way you're going to do that is by having the system on 32% fan speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video, and then I'm going to come back to this with the system set to 32%, and we'll have a look at the temperatures. Right, okay, so now we're back, and what I've done is cool the system down, put it on 32% fan speed, and I've also told it to increase the fan speed if it goes beyond 68. I don't think we're going to see that. I think it's going to stay way below 68 degrees without any problems. So don't forget, on system control fan, we had the unit going into the 70s. It reached it to 28% fan speed, and it pretty much stayed there under load, and that's quiet. You know, a lot of people are going to be like very happy with that, because they want a nice quiet system. But what they don't realise is that inside your system is over 70 degrees. So we're just going to let this level out, which means we're going to let the temperatures peak. The RSX is still rising a little. When I say RSX, I mean your graphics chip. And a lot of people say to me, and I think you've asked me this question about the reliability of the system. Yes, definitely strip the console out like I've done. All the modifications put in place, so that means that your power supply unit has been delidded, so it's exposed in there. It's not in a metal case, which heats it up, and also heats up your GPU more, because your CPU rather, because it's on top of it. So you have this very hot brick on top of the CPU. It's going to make it hotter. So by delidding it, it helps it to keep cool, and also prevents system failure of the power supply unit, which will just give you yellow light of death on your system. It's one of the causes. So we've eradicated that. We've put heat pads on the tokens, and this really does do a great job, because I've done lots of research and testing on it. And I've had the system open running, and the tokens do get very hot. So by having heat pads connected to the heat shield, has this big heat plate in there, a metal heat plate for it to disperse the heat right where the fan is. So this is a very, very efficient way of keeping the NEC tokens cool. And then of course you've got your CPU and GPU, which is your RSX. 90% of the time, if you're going to get a system failure, from my experience, 90% of the time it's going to be something to do with the CPU or the RSX. And this is where I believe keeping it cool is going to help, because there's been lots of research into it, and they say just by reducing the temperature by 1 degree can add months, if not years, to the life of your machine, whether it be a PC, laptop, or a games console. So in this case, we've increased the fan speed by no more than 4%. The temperatures are leveling out now, and as you can see, you've got a CPU at 60 degrees and an RSX which is probably going to stay around 59 to 60 degrees, and that's a whopping, it's over 10 degrees lower on the CPU and GPU. And because we have the fan speed set manually to not allow the system to go over 68 degrees, if anything was to happen, like you I know it's a really hot day and you're really hammering the system, you're playing it for hours, and I do suggest, per the way, no more than 2 hours gameplay on one of these. Give it a 15-minute rest and then you can go back to the gameplay. The 15-minute rest needs to consist of 5 minutes on the XMB menu, and the reason for that is that the fan will expel the heat before you turn it off, and then 10 minutes off. If you turn it off immediately, you are leaving the heat in the system and there's no fan to expel the heat because you've turned the system off. So yeah, it makes sense just to leave it on for 5 minutes on the XMB and then turn it off, especially if you're running system control fan. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, we've got massive difference. We've got a 4% increase on fan speed, which the difference between 28% and 32 is minimal. It reaches 28% fan speed within 10 minutes of you switch it on heavy gameplay anyway. So that's negligible. You have it silent for a whole 10 minutes before you actually get to 28, and then you can hear the fan. 32% is mildly louder. It doesn't affect your gameplay, but what it does do is it takes over 10 degrees off your CPU and GPU, and that's going to add years of extra life to your console. So yeah, all the mods that I've done, great, but the best thing you can do to maintain it is have manual fan control. So that's my tutorial on the two differences between Syscon and manual fan control. Yeah, if that's something that you want to consider, then basically get in contact with me and I can point you in the right direction so you can have this all set up on your system. Alright, thanks for watching.